Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 50k subscribers over here, so that subscription would be much appreciated. I'm going to be doing a deep dive soon on the Deep Dives with Rusty Buckets channel, so keep an eye out for that. The best way that you could possibly support me is by watching that video when that comes out. But with that said, I wanted to talk about the Dallas Mavericks today because they are in an interesting position for this upcoming year. Obviously, there is all the baggage with this team and the Luka Doncic trade. But for today, I would like to look past all of that, not get hung up on the Nico Harrison of it all, and go ahead and just talk about what this Mavericks team could look like next year, all of that extra shit aside. So first things first, you have to talk about the #1 overall pick, Cooper Flagg, who only played 2 games in the Summer League, one of which he was bad, one of which he was great. So I don't think there's much reason to read into that. From what I've gathered from him as a player, he kind of just seems like Jason Tatum with a little bit more big man in him, a little bit more rim protection, a little bit more rebounding, a little bit more like just trying to be a paint presence. But like the idea of this 6'10", super switchable, super versatile forward who can create his own shot and work within the flow of an offense. Good playmaker, good enough ball handler, all things considered. I do think there are some questions as to the level of shot creator he is going to be, at least right out of the gate in his career. But I have no doubts that he will be a great defensive player and that he will be able to, at the very least, fit in on the offensive end of the floor. Also, I think with Anthony Davis being the only option who should really be clearly above him in the pecking order, he will have plenty of opportunity to score the ball throughout his rookie year. Of course, Kyrie Irving is on this roster, but Kyrie Irving is not going to be available until like the very, very tail end of the year, if not at all, because I don't think he tore his Achilles, but he tore his ACL, if I'm not mistaken. So it's possible to come back from an ACL within a year, but I don't think that it's to be expected, especially out of an older guard. But regardless, Kyrie is not going to be there for a majority of the year, which is a part of the reason why they went ahead and signed D'Angelo Russell, who I do think is a good addition, who will fit the team pretty well in terms of just taking on that Kyrie Irving lead point guard role for, you know, a fraction of the price that he usually goes for. And something that I like to say a lot of the time is that a guy's contract recontextualizes his value as a player. And while D'Angelo Russell is absolutely far, far, far from my first choice for a starting point guard, he is reasonably priced this time around. You're going to get a guy who can give you 18 and 8 during the regular season on respectable efficiency, and it's like for like $6 million-ish a year. So makes complete sense. I think that was a good addition, even though I put him in the D tier for starting point guards on my point guard tier list. Given the context of the situation, it makes a lot of sense. I also have my eye out for some of Dallas's other guards, primarily Max Christie, Jaden Hardy, and Brandon Williams. First, Brandon Williams I want to talk about because he was deeply captivating to me as a player last year. He played 33 games, 15 minutes per game, with 52, 40, 83 splits, averaging 8 points and 2.3 assists, as well as 0.7 steals, which is pretty good for 15 minutes per game. If you bump these numbers up to per 36, which is not me saying that he should play 36 minutes, but just simply as a way of recognizing how his numbers are, you know, contextualized to the minutes, he would be a 20.5 assist, 1.8 steal player, again on great splits. He is quite the ball handler. He can really dribble it quite well. His jump shot is also pretty good. I'm not sure what his mid-range statistics are. Yeah, very good. 60% basically in this recent stretch with the Mavericks. Not particularly high volume, just about 10% of his shots coming from there, but he does hit them. I think he could be pretty good, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ended up being the starting point guard on this team over D'Angelo Russell before Kyrie Irving returns. Jaden Hardy is a player who I have always liked and has never really been able to find a concrete long-term role on this team, but he always makes good with the limited opportunity that he does have. 38% from three last season and for his career at large. Definitely more of a scoring guard and more of a shooting guard than an actual lead ball handler and playmaker, but I imagine he will also be competing for that lead guard spot with D'Angelo Russell. And then, of course, you get to Max Christie, who put up good-ass stats with the Lakers in the previous year. And then when he first cracked the rotation for the Mavericks, he was putting up like 16 to 17 points per game out of the gate. Did not maintain that momentum, averaged 11 on the 32 games he played with the Mavericks as a whole, but I do think he also has a lot of upward mobility and could be a significantly better player than we've known him to be to this point. So there's a lot of young guys who I think could surprise some people. Then we get to the more established veterans. And, you know, Klay Thompson, $16 million a year to be one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA and not much else, I think is completely fine. He is taking a career low amount of two-pointers, even lower than his rookie year when he took 6.8 of them a game, which is definitely illustrative of the time that one of the greatest three-point shooters ever was taking 7 twos per game and 4 three-pointers per game in 2011. But yeah, only 4.5 two-pointers per game this year, limiting his dumb mid-range shots and things like that. And he's taken 8 threes a game on 39%, so I think he's a valuable player. But also on the contract value that he's at, if Max Christie ended up proving to be the better player, they can still feel comfortable starting him. PJ Washington is cool. I do think his three is a little disappointing. I wish he took a higher volume. I wish he also was consistent, but he's a fine rotation player, kind of just a master. What's the term? Jack of all trades, master of none. Not much of a playmaker, but on offense, he can do a little bit of everything, and he's a pretty good defensive player. Caleb Martin was not good for this team when he played for them, but maybe he'll be something. Najee Marshall, I think, is probably the most underrated player on this team, 13 points per game last year, although his three ball is particularly rough. So I don't know what his actual role is going to look like on this team. I can't imagine you can play him a whole lot with Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis if you're also not going to be able to space the floor. Then you have the bigs with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Derek Lively, I would like to see get more opportunity, play more than 23 minutes per game. But they've consistently been like treating Gafford like him and Lively are completely equals. Daniel Gafford scores at a higher volume. He is more persistent going to the basket, more aggressive, more strong, more athletic, at least a little bit. But I personally think Derek Lively is the better defensive player, and more importantly, because they're both good defensive players, his decision making is significantly better, especially on the short roll. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the players who are going to play some huge part. They also got Andrew Nemhard's brother Ryan out of this previous draft. I don't even believe he went drafted, but he appears to be on the roster. So yeah, he seems like he might be a piece. There's something there. But, like, we're talking about a team with the first overall pick who I expect to put up, like, 17-5-5 or 17-8-5 maybe. PJ Washington, good starter. Klay Thompson, good starter. Daniel Gafford, good starter. Derek Lively, good starter. Max Christie, possibly good starter. And then a handful of good role players on top of that. And then, of course, the big man up top, Anthony Davis, who, when he played for the Mavericks out of the gate, goddamn was he cooking. Then he kind of slowed down, only played 29 minutes per game, ended up playing in the play-in tournament, and I think he had one play-in game where he was excellent, and then they lost in the second one to, I think, the Memphis Grizzlies, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I think Anthony Davis, solid first option. He hasn't been like a bona fide first option in quite some time. I think the only way for them to be a contender is Kyrie Irving returning and being the Kyrie that we know him to be. But in terms of this year, or most of the year, if Kyrie were to return towards the end, I think they can be a playoff team. I would not put them in the contender conversation unless Cooper Flagg is way better out of the gate than he is projected to be, which who knows, maybe that is the case. I still think they're a playoff team in the West. I still think they could be interesting. I think, dare I say, they could even be kind of fun, because one thing that I love, which makes me convinced that I'm really going to love Cooper Flagg, is I love a shot blocking wing. If you know me, you know how much I love Andre Karolinko, and I do believe that Cooper Flagg can have that kind of defensive presence, and pretty early on at that. And then him paired with Anthony Davis protecting the basket. I just think that's going to be a whole lot of fun, and I look forward to that. The rest of the roster we shall see, but I think the Mavericks are deserving of, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to give the Mavericks praise because fuck Nico Harrison, fuck everything about how that franchise has operated in the last year. But it's also unfair to Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis and the other players on this team to just completely discount them. And I think they deserve that at the very least. And the Mavericks should be good. That's my take. The Mavericks should be pretty good. Let me know what you think about them coming into the next season. If you're a Mavericks fan, I'm really curious to know how you feel about that, because first of all, I don't know how you made it through the Luka trade, but after all, it's got to be this weird, bittersweet feeling to see Cooper Flagg potentially rising amongst the ranks in the NBA after last time that happened with one of your dudes. They got shipped away. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below, especially the Mavericks fans. But that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.